RKW, Ramon, Kayla, and Will on a Friday morning in beautiful Music City. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling with a big one to preview for you in Knoxville tomorrow night, Tennessee and Florida. VolQuest's Brent Hubbs joins us here on the show this morning, as he does at this time every week. Brent, what's up? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys this morning?
I'm good. All I know is I heard your name get a shout out because last night on Rivalry Thursday, our good friends Eric Kane and Austin Price mentioned something about Andy Griffith as Brentwood Academy played Knoxville Catholic and George McIntyre was on the field, and all of a sudden I hear Brent Hubbs get a shout out because there's an Andy Griffith shout out. So you were being mentioned last night. I'm sure you were probably aware of that.
I was not aware, but you can remember this. You can always use any Andy Griffith episode for a lesson in life.
Yes.
And so, that's why it's America's greatest television show. So we use those lessons, and Tennessee's looking for every lesson they could find to get ready to play the Gators tomorrow night.
I love it.
Well, hopefully the music will be banging because I'm sure because you've listened. Glorilla released today, Hub. So all the Memphis recruits, okay, and all the Memphis guys we have signed will be on tilt, just so you know, just like you will.
Well, we'll all be ready to go, but certainly Tennessee needs Bryson Easton from Memphis and a few of those other Memphis cats in the orange uniform. Big O. They need some guys. What'd you call it? On tilt?
On tilt, yes.
Okay, on tilt. Very good. All right, thanks.
Or if we go back to the mid-2000s, Lil Jon, Crunk. Crunk is what we'll use. Yes, we need him Crunk.
Okay, I was thinking of the teacups at Disney World when you're on tilt, but what do I know?
Those are the best ones,
We're blending worlds. That's the type of things we like right there, Hubs.
I love it. Well, we've had Ramon talking about Gibbs Hall Gator Nuggets this morning from back in his playing days, Brent. So we put Ramon back in that 2004 mindset with that game kind of went pretty well for Tennessee.
It did.
Yeah, it did go well for Tennessee. Obviously, a young quarterback came of age there in Eric Ainge, and that was a wild night. And listen, it's a reminder of what this series is truly all about. And for Tennessee fans, there's a lot of pain and heartache, and that's why there'll be a lot of angst going into the stadium, not just because of what happened last week in Fayetteville, but you take what happened in Fayetteville and you couple it with the fact that Tennessee has found a lot of ways to lose this game when they've been equal to or better than Florida, particularly the last 20 years or so. And it'll be a bite your nail night for sure. So hopefully Tennessee can get out of the gates and get off to a decent start. Something they could not do last week, something they did not do last year in terms of getting off the field. You look at Tennessee in the first quarter last year, I think Florida had the football for over 12 minutes of the first quarter. And you look at what happened last week in Arkansas, the Razorbacks had the football for over 13 minutes of the first quarter. Hard to get into offensive rhythm if you don't get many opportunities. So Tennessee's got to get off the field on defense, and the offense has got to get going out of the gate.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's on 3, our guest. Brent, how does Tennessee get the best out of Nico Iamaleava tomorrow? What is the adjustment you feel like Josh Heupel could make in this offense?
I think they've got to move him around a little bit, roll him out. I love what they did on play number 1 last week. It was negated because an offensive lineman or two decided to take off down the field for whatever reason. I'm not sure where they were going, but I like the fact that they got him out, got him a simple read, got him an easy throw. They had 14 yards there. They're getting ready to go tempo, and you're thinking, all right, here we go. And then all of a sudden now it's 1st and 15. So you got to avoid the early mistakes, but give him something easy to get him going a little bit. I also think you got to let him, run the football. You go back and look, he had 68, 67 yards rushing against NC State. He hadn't had that many yards rushing since in 3 games. Now, you don't run him against Kent State, but really he only had one called run the last 2 weeks. Now, he's had some scrambles, but they had a called run for him to get a first down to end the game at Oklahoma to put him in a kneel-down situation. That was a 16-yard run. Outside of that, his legs haven't been a factor. I don't think you run him 15, 20 times a game, but in critical moments and critical situations, his legs have to be something that defenses have to account for. I don't think they're having to do that very well right now. And I think the other thing, too, is get him some shorter throws. Give him some quicker things to throw. I've watched a bunch of stuff the last or this week, going back to 22 and going back to last year. And the first possession last year against Alabama, Joe Milton runs an RPO, and the RPO throw is basically a little 6-yard seam route to Squirrel White. It's just an easy throw based on how the linebacker played Joe Milton at the mesh point. You got to do some easier things, I think, for Nico to start the game and get him into a better rhythm.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's with us this morning. Hubbs, with that being said, also, I feel like this week the conversation has been the offense getting back to what we expect from Coach Heupel. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I heard him on Tuesday night bring that up when asked that question, like, hey, where's the tempo, where's the pace? Is that something that we need to expect this upcoming weekend too, getting back to that 2021-22 pace?
Yeah, I don't know that they'll get back to the warp speed that they were, but they have to get back to playing that style of football. And listen, Josh Heupel's got the best defense he's ever had. So naturally you're going to play a little more complimentary football. You got a young quarterback, you got helmet communication, so maybe you're trying to get into the perfect call too often. But Tennessee in 21 and 22, and really early in part of the season in 23 last year, was largely about pace of play and going fast. Because what do? That creates chaos for the other side of the ball. How many times have we seen, everybody keeps asking me, why aren't receivers 5, 7, 10 yards wide open like they were in 22? Why couldn't the receivers do that? Well, part of the reason why Jalen Hyatt was so wide open, yes, he can run, but when you've got the safety in the corner talking and looking at each other when the ball snapped, to borrow no Trooper Taylor line, Ramon Foster, you're beat at birth. It's over. and so it's one of those things where Tennessee is not creating chaos. Saturday night in Arkansas, the Arkansas defense created the chaos for the Tennessee offense, which is not something we have seen very often under Josh Heupel. I do think Tennessee's got to go faster, and they can't just go faster after a 15 or 20-yard gain. You got to recognize that a 4 to 6 yard gain on defense or on offense on first down is still a win, and you can still go fast. So I do think Tennessee will try to play with more tempo at home early in this game to try to see if they can get Florida's defense on their heels.
Love that. We have Brent Hubbs with us on today at his weekly spot. Hubbs, so you mentioned what Arkansas did then, and here's my thing. Where has Tim Banks been in this conversation as far as beating opposing teams and their scripts? Because, again, you look at the Arkansas game, and Florida did it last year. Is there an understanding that I got the guys to take risk with to beat the script? Because if you can get that ball back fast, a 3-and-out in that first series, then the offense can put people in the corner and stuff them in.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And that was the surprise of last week. Let me say this, too. I did not give Taylon Green, the Arkansas quarterback, a whole lot of respect for his accuracy or to throw the football. He had not been very accurate in the games I had watched. He had moments where he threw it pretty well, but it was a roller coaster through the game, right? Like one series, he'd look like he threw it pretty good. The next series, there was behind him, in the dirt, everywhere else. He threw the ball extremely well Saturday from an accuracy standpoint. Now, Tennessee helped him early. I think Tennessee was probably really consumed with the perimeter. Arkansas had run it on the perimeter more than they'd run it between the tackles. And they had thrown it more to the right side than they really had done anything else. They threw the ball in the middle of the field. They picked on Tennessee's zone. I think Tennessee's linebackers were probably quick to vacate, thinking Green was going to run, and created some bigger holes in those zones. So Tennessee's got to tighten it up in the middle of the field. Because here's what we do know about Florida and Graham Mertz, okay? They are going to throw the football in the middle of the field. That's where they play. That's where Graham Mertz is most comfortable throwing the football, is working the middle of the field. Yes, he'll move a little bit, but he's not moving to run. He's moving to extend plays. Tennessee has to play much better in their zone coverage at the linebacker and safety levels than they did last week, and certainly a lot better than they did a year ago. Tennessee's linebackers got picked on big time in this game a year ago, especially early, which is why Florida had success on 3rd and long in the middle of the field. Tennessee's they've got to be tighter in that zone stuff, Ramon. And then James Pierce, who showed up statistically pretty well in the Arkansas game, has got to build on that and be effective to against Graham Mertz and get some pass rush.
VolQuest's Brent Hubbs joining us this morning on RK-Dub. So after the game against Arkansas, Dylan Sampson had some thoughts about maybe being too lackadaisical during that open date. Brent, what have you heard about just this week's of practice and how they maybe have refocused?
You've heard good things. Now, I know fans take that with a grain of salt, right? Because you heard good things leading up to Arkansas, like, oh, yeah, so the focus has been good, everybody's ready to go, and you don't go play well, and then you have one of your team leaders say, well, we didn't have a very good run of practice over 2 weeks. But I do think the focus has been better. I think there's no greater attention getter in sports than losing. I think it's always been that way. I think it will always be that way. So I think everybody's focus has been better. And you talk to people privately, and there's a lot of people who said, yeah, it wasn't the best set of practices that we've seen in the Josh Heupel era. Even though when asked about it, Heupel kind of downplayed it and said, practice was fine. They just got to go play better. I think at that point, Josh Heupel was really tired of talking about Arkansas and wanted to go forward and talk about Florida. But I don't think it was their best work over the last 2 weeks. I think this week has been better. But you got to go out and perform. And Saturday night's the next test. Quarterback's got to take a step. He's got to grow. He's been sacked 14 times in 6 career starts. That's too many. Some of that's on the offensive line. Some of that's on the tight ends and the running backs. And some of that's, quite frankly, on the quarterback. He's got to get it out of his hands at times. So Tennessee's got to play in a better rhythm offensively, and they need to get out of the gates and get going.
Brent Hubbs joining us this morning on RK-Dub like he does every Friday at this time. When it comes to availability of some of these wide receivers, what can you tell us in terms of who we will see on the field probably on Saturday, with Brew McCoy, Squirrel White being some of the names that were questionable?
Well, the surprise of Squirrel White, given the way he left the field in the fourth quarter, that kind of looked like it might be a collarbone issue. It's not. He's got a little shoulder sprain, but he's braced it up. He's practiced this week. He's a tough character now. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but mentally he's a pretty tough dude. So he's going to give it a go. I don't think he'll return punts, but he's going to give it a go and be available for Tennessee. We'll see how much he plays, if there's a snap count or how that goes. There's no way Brew McCoy was going to miss this game. He's dealing with a hand injury of some kind. They've got him fitted up. They've got a glove, and they've got things padded up for him. He's going to go and play tomorrow night. I think that's big for Nico. I think Nico needs him as a bit of a security blanket out there, because he's seemed most comfortable with Brew the last 2 games on the road. And then we'll see. The biggest question mark seems to be Dante Thornton. He's still listed as questionable. We'll see what the update on that is tonight. I think there's a feeling that one may be trending in a more positive direction for him after he got rolled up on a wide receiver screen blocking situation. So they may be okay there numbers-wise. Are they going to be 100% healthy with some of them? Probably not, but it looks like they may be close to having everybody available for them at that position. So, again, you got to find ways to get them the ball easier. Help your quarterback out and go make plays. And some of those guys have to play better too. I mean, you had some receivers last week, you're supposed to run a 15-yard dig and you run it at 17 yards. That's a problem for your timing. And so they've got to play that, Tennessee across the board has to play a smarter brand of football than they played last week.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's on 3, our guests this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brent, how big of an issue are Tennessee's tackles and some of the plays that show up on film? And I know that 40-yard bomb to Dante Thornton has gone kind of viral, and Lance Hurd, and kind of the effort maybe, or just the fatigue that set in on that play. What's your concern level for Tennessee at that position right now?
Well, that play's a little bit, not humorous, but I look at that play, and it's not like the defensive end was coming off the ball like J.J. Watt was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, both those guys were extremely tired, and it was just kind of an ugly dance, and then the defensive end decided to go a little bit. Lance has got to play better. I mean, but so does John Campbell, and so does Javonte Spraggins. Spraggins gave up too much pressure on the inside. So did the whole line. Gave up too much pressure. Lance looked like a guy at times Saturday night that had not played football in nearly a month. He's also a guy, too, that coming into the season, he had played about 200 snaps in college football, And then in the preseason, he didn't scrimmage. He and Campbell didn't scrimmage very much in the preseason, and I think that shows a little bit. So we'll see how much improvement they can make, and do they rotate to kind of keep guys fresh? Do you play Larry Johnson and Dane Davis? We saw Davis in the second half on the scoring drive. Do they rotate him more frequently to try to help those guys out a little bit? We'll see what Glenn Ellerby needs to do. They have to pass protect better, period. It starts at the tackle position, but also they've got to communicate on the stunts and the twist, which they missed on Saturday night. The tight ends, when they're chip blocking and helping, they got to help better. They missed a couple of help assignments. Running back wise, they missed a couple of assignments that led to sacks. So I don't think it's isolated to one position on the offensive line. It's not isolated to one person on the offensive line. It's clearly evident they did not play well across the board, especially at tackle. But there's a lot of things that a lot of people need to do better to keep the quarterback upright. And he's been hit too much all season long. They got to protect him better starting Saturday night.
Hubs, also with a Saturday night game at night inside of Neyland, there's going to be a lot of festivities going on, man, and a lot of big-time recruits, too. Where are the Vols with their commitments? Shady Hayward, I see, is going to be in town. Is Harmon, the linebacker, inside linebacker? Where are they at with those guys continually to recruit them?
Well, I mean, it's important to get them to town because you really haven't had an opportunity. I mean, you're saying, hey, come up and watch the Kent State game for a 7:30 start. Some mamas are going, we really want to drive up there for that one? This is the first big game and the first big opportunity to get these guys on campus. And some of these guys have taken visits elsewhere while you've been away from home or you haven't played big-time competition. Shady Hayward's been in Athens, Georgia. Harmon's been in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So you want to get them in town and you want to get them back comfortable around everybody else. I mean, Christian Gass is supposed to be in town. He's hearing from Georgia plenty. Tennessee's recruiting at a level that people are not stopping recruiting their commitments. So it's important. They've got a bunch of good players coming in, uncommitted guys coming in the class of 26, class of 27. But it's extremely important for Tennessee to get these committed guys back around the team, back around the other committed guys, continue to create that environment and that culture that you had created with them when they committed in the summertime. And so I think it's important to get them in town this weekend. This is a big weekend for recruiting. Next weekend at 3:30 will be a big weekend as well.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest's On 3 joins us Fridays here on the show. You'll hear him tomorrow night, courtesy of the Vol Network, as Tennessee takes on Florida. Great stuff, Brent. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Hubbs.
Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, okay?
Yes, sir.
too.
There's Brent Hubbs, brought to you by Ascend Federal Credit Union, your financial partner for every stage of life. I am waiting for the time now where Brent in his halftime stats updates on the Vol Network says that Dylan Sampson really on tilt in that first half.
Right?
19 carries, 170 yards.
He's welcome.
He's getting crunk.
I don't know what's
not really,
I
but
don't know what's more likely. Dylan Sampson running for 170 yards in the first half, or Brent describing it as on tilt.
He did say that
Who's to say?
Convincingly,
He
though,
did
when he
say
said,
it,
I was like, that actually came off kind of natural.
Yeah, he's picking up what I was putting down. Hub gets it.
Yeah.
He can go from the greenhouse, you know what I'm saying, to the trap house.
You're right.
That's where he's at right now.
Coming up. Most interesting games of the college football weekend. There are lots of them to discuss. We'll tell you something about every big college game coming up tomorrow next.